2 podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Hamilton, and I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, Connor and Kyle. How's it going, guys?
Hi, everyone.
Awesome.
And we're joined tonight by our guest, Cameron. How are you, Cameron?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
Pretty
you just told me how you were, but anyway.
Today, we will be discussing several big summer movies. This is our Summer in Review episode. And right after this, we'll be doing our fall preview. So as we promised, we're doing a double episode since last week. We had some technical difficulties, and we couldn't get an episode up. We got those issues fixed, and we were rewarding you with 2 brand new, very good episodes. I hope you guys enjoy it. And before we jump into our summer review, we're going to cut to In Other News. If you remember the last time, we introduced In Other News a segment in which we give you a couple other news topics that are sort of floating around the interwebs. They're sort of big news stories. We're not going to waste your time here. So let's get started with Ant-Man, Marvel's Ant-Man movie, which will be written and directed by Edgar Wright, will be released earlier. It was originally scheduled for November 2015. It will now be released in July. Jurassic Park was originally released in 1993. AMC has greenlit a Breaking Bad spinoff, which will center on the character of Saul Goodman, played by Bob Odenkirk. American Psycho gets a TV sequel. It's going to be a TV series sequel, and that's in development over at FX. And our final piece of news tonight, probably the biggest news of the week, Harry Potter is coming back. Without Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling will be writing a spin-off movie based on a textbook in the Harry Potter universe called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. That was announced today by Warner Brothers. That's in other news. And now we're going to get into our summer 2013 review segment, starting with Marvel's Iron Man 3. So, Iron Man 3, what'd you guys think?
It was good.
Yeah, I really liked Iron Man 3. Am I one of the only people that actually really like the Mark 42 design? Like, I really like the armor design. I actually prefer it over the older armor, coloring-wise, over the older armors.
Conceptually, yeah, it was good. Yeah.
It eventually grew me. Like, I didn't like it when it was revealed at Comic-Con 2012. I thought it was kind of weird looking. Almost, I thought it might have been like a ceramic sort of material used. But, once I saw it in action, there's a theory that it was going to be the sentient armor, which is a villain in the Iron Man story. It's one of Tony's suits that sort of gets a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And turns against him. Unfortunately, it didn't do that because the way the trailers were cut, it made it look like that's what was going to happen. The trailers were cut in a way that made you think a lot of things were going to happen that actually didn't happen, which brings us to the Mandarin plot twist. We've talked about this before. I mean, this has been conversation for months. It will continue to be conversation for quite some time, but guys, go ahead and give your thoughts on this. Once again, what did you think of Ben Kingsley's turn as Trevor?
I enjoyed the twist. I thought it was great. I thought it speaks a lot to something can appear to be this huge threat, but it actually, in all actuality, there's some rich businessman actually behind it all, pulling the strings. That was a very modern take on a story, and probably, if it was a real situation, would be what would happen. It fits into our modern world very well. I do understand why people would have trouble with it. That would be like them turning the Joker into just a figurehead.
The thing is, though, because the Mandarin isn't as well known to the general public as the Joker, you can get away with changing up the character.
Yes.
Because I'm not a person who feels like you need to portray the character exactly like they were in their source material. As long as you give me a good character and a good movie, I don't care what you do with the character, as long as it fits the concept and the interpretation of the story you want. I didn't get why people. Well, I understood why people were so annoyed and upset about it. My friend Laura is a huge Marvel comic geek, and she ranted for days on her Facebook how like disgusted she was with the film, which I personally thought she was completely overreacting. And it comes down to some things just don't translate well on screen, and I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was I was fine with it, and I don't get why there's such a backlash from the fanboy community, because at the end of the day, you still had Ben Kingsley give a solid performance. Granted, I wanted more of him, and because the Mandarin wasn't really the Mandarin, we didn't get as much Ben Kingsley as I wanted. But I just don't understand it. There's actually a lot of things that pissed fans off this year from many movies, whether it was Man of Steel or Star Trek, and I don't get it. I feel like a movie is a movie. You liked it or you didn't, but don't hate on it just because the filmmakers decided to take, this character.
Artistic liberties.
Yeah, exactly. And it's Marvel, it's their character. If they wanted to take Mandarin and make him into a gangster thug, they can make him into a gangster thug if they want.
And I think this is something to remember. It fits in well with the trilogy. The Iron Man films have always been deeply grounded in reality in our modern times. It takes on real issues that are actually happening in our world and kind of puts them into the Iron Man world and makes it part of the story. So I think that's kind of doing the same thing here, if that makes sense.
Well, Cameron, do you have any thoughts on Iron Man 3 before we move on?
Yeah, I saw Iron Man 3 in theaters, and I was excited because my favorite film of all time is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is the movie that brought Downey Jr. back, directed by Shane Black, written by Shane Black. Wonderful film. Go see it. So I was anticipating Iron Man 3 more than I was the Avengers. And when I saw it in theaters, I didn't love it. I liked it a lot, and I didn't love it. And I recently downloaded it digitally, and I rewatched it, and now I do love it. I think thematically, it's the strongest film that came out this summer. I think that everything that's said in that film is smarter than anything in any other scripts this summer. And it's a film that I think, strangely, if you watch with an audience, is worse. I remember when reviews first came out from people who had gotten over the whole Mandarin thing, they were saying that a lot of the humor was really forced and it was really out of place. But the thing is, if you watch the Iron Man 3 was the movie, I think, with the most packed audiences of the Iron Man films. And the audience that I saw Iron Man 3 with had a huge reaction to every comedic line. There was like an outburst in laughter all the time. And I think that hurts the film. When you watch it alone and you're not laughing hysterically, like the whole time, none of the humor feels forced. It all feels very naturalistic. It's all very into itself. And it makes it a much stronger film. So if you didn't like Iron Man 3, beyond the fact that you didn't like the Mandarin twist, which I was perfectly okay with because I thought they did it really well, I'd say another watch and see how you feel about it, because it's a film that I think feels better on a smaller screen.
Oh, and I guess I should also say, I may have said it in the past, but I thought it wrapped up the trilogy really well. And it cemented that Iron Man is Tony Stark. It's not the suit, he's the hero. Like, I think that was the whole theme with the movie, that he doesn't need the suit to be a hero, to be Iron Man.
Next up is Star Trek Into Darkness, the sequel to J.J. Abrams' 2009 reboot of the Star Trek franchise. Star Trek II introduces us, or should I say reintroduces us, to one of the biggest villains of the Star Trek franchise, Khan, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think this was a really polarizing film. Cameron, what did you think?
This is one that I've only seen once, and I saw it in theaters, and I remember coming out not really liking it. But my issue with it wasn't the con twist or anything like that. My issue with it is the script isn't bad, but the script sometimes doesn't play by its own rules. The warping stuff drove me crazy. There are instances in this film in which they can't warp, and then they can, and then the shields are up so they can't, but then they do it anyway, like literally minutes after they say they can't.
So I haven't seen the film, just FYI. So basically, what you're saying is there are noticeable points throughout the film where basically the script contradicts itself.
And I think it wouldn't be such a big issue if warping wasn't such a big element from the first film. The 09 film I really loved, and I'm not a Star Trek fan myself, but I really loved the reboot. And when they bring in Scotty and the whole warping thing, it's really cool, and they did it really well. And then in this film, it's kind of like Cumberbatch's character of Khan. In the beginning of this film, he's got like this device that lets him warp pretty much over any distance at any time he wants in any ship or whatever. And then they just they kind of drop the ball with the warp thing, and characters can sometimes warp, but then they can't, but they don't explain why unless they have to, or it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I think everybody was just as good as they were in the first film. Cumberbatch, I think, is great. And I really liked Peter Weller. There are also very tiny issues with it that aren't big enough for me to hate the film that I could bring up, but they just kind of annoyed me. It's definitely worth a watch. I think of all the summer films, it's definitely the one I would put my money to go see just to see how you feel about it. Because they just had the survey come out, I guess, a few weeks ago that Star Trek fans rated it the worst Star Trek movie.
Yes, I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
And I'm not a Star Trek fan, but even I know that. And I've seen like Star Trek Nemesis and stuff. So I know for a fact this is not the worst Star Trek movie they've made. So there's a great overreaction to it that I can't see, I guess, why they would hate it so much if they liked the 2009 reboot.
Yeah, like I said, this was a really polarizing film. I didn't really notice the issues with the transporter. I think I was just too mesmerized by all the pretty colors. Like, I tell you, it's just so cool looking. The film just looks so good that all that stuff is just like wiped away from my mind, and I just focus. Ooh, lens flare. Ooh, shiny color. Ooh, look at that. It's so bright. And then I also saw it. I saw this film twice, both times in IMAX. One on a LIMAX screen. That's for those who don't know, there are two different IMAX screens. There's the digital, what everyone likes to call LIMAX, which you'll find in your AMC Regal theaters. And then there's your actual real IMAX screen, which you'll find in some AMC and Regal. I haven't really been to a real IMAX screen in a theater chain, but you can most definitely find them at your science centers and your museums. Here in DC, I go to the Natural History Museum, which has I want to say a 70 by 90 foot screen, so it's like 2 stories tall. And I saw Star Trek there for the second time in 3D. And that was a really cool experience. June saw the return of Superman in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Let's start with Connor. He is our biggest Superman fan here.
I liked it, just point blank. I liked it. The promotion for this film was just phenomenal. It got me really pumped. And I guess that was kind of my downfall, because when you go into a film and you expect the greatest thing since sliced bread, you're probably not going to get that walking out. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a interesting new take on Superman. I liked what Zack Snyder did. It's obviously been very polarizing with critics. Um, I really haven't paid attention to the critical reception of the general public. I just know that the whole reason Warner Brothers wanted to reboot Superman again was because of the very lackluster reset Superman Returns got, which I don't even think is that bad of a film. I mean, I see fanboys all the time saying Bryan Singer's Returns is a god-awful film. It really isn't. You know, I think it's a decent film. I think anyone who enjoys superhero movies should check out Superman Returns. But yeah, I really did like Man of Steel. I didn't think it was amazing. It did have its issues. The two biggest for me were I wanted more character development for Clark. I liked the flashbacks. I thought that was an interesting way to tell snippets of the origin story that everybody knows. But I think the biggest issue for me, and this is a problem in all of Zack Snyder's films, pacing. It was just strange. By the 48-minute mark, we already had Clark in the suit. Granted, we didn't see him in action really until like 15 minutes later, 20 minutes after he donned the suit. But the pacing was just a little bit off. For example, you had the almost 10 minutes fight scene in Smallville. And then I think 5 minutes later, after that fight had ended, you already had Zod releasing the World Engine, and that was basically the introduction into the action-packed third act. I just felt like Snyder. And granted, I read reports that the first assembly cut was over 3 hours. So, you know, who knows how involved Snyder was with the editing. I'm sure he was involved very heavily. He seems to be involved very heavily in his films. But no, I liked it. I can get why people didn't. It is very different. It's much more science fiction than it is a just run-of-the-mill superhero film. I thought the cast did great. I wanted more of people. For example, I wanted more Lawrence Fishburne. I wanted more Kevin Costner. That's the thing. In all the trailers, you think that Kevin is going to have such a huge role in the film, and he's only in like 7 or 8 scenes, and they're all flashback scenes with Clark, played by Dylan Strawberry and Henry Cavill. Speaking of which, I thought Henry did fine. I really liked what he showed, what he did. I just wanted more of it. I felt like David should have written more opportunities for Cavill to express more of himself. I mean, Cavill showed he had a few snippets, whether it was the controversial death scene of Pa Kent or whether it was the whole scene where he kills General Zod.
Cool, thanks. Cameron, what did you think?
Don't ask me about Man of Steel. I'd rather hear your all's takes because my constant bitching and moaning about Man of Steel, not as a Superman film, but just as a film in general, it irritates me just to think about it. I looked at it because I'm not really a Superman fan myself. So when I went in, I didn't really have any issues with what they were doing with the character of Superman, but just the technical stuff of the film, I just could not get past. And I've ranted and I've raved about it before, and I'm not gonna waste time doing it now because I want to hear everyone else's opinions, and they deserve to get their chance to say what they thought. So I'll just leave it at the simple statement that I did not like Man of Steel, and I feel very justified in my reasoning for thinking that way.
Well, you're not the only one who didn't like Man of Steel. I was pretty let down by it. It wasn't a horrible movie, but it's like you were saying, Connor. The pacing was off.
Yes.
I wasn't a huge fan of what I respected what they were doing with them, but I just didn't like those flashbacks. I wanted more Kevin Costner.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that they finally made Lois not a complete idiot, and she knew that he was Superman like from the get-go. There wasn't this whole, if you put these glasses on, no one will know who you are. No, you're still like a fucking ripped guy who's like who disappears.
Yeah.
Whenever shit goes down, and he comes back. He's like, "Oh, what did I miss?" Oh. And then he bumps into. "Oh, I'm so clumsy." No, no. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the sequel. Pacific Rim, that came out a couple weeks later, a original sci-fi film from Guillermo del Toro about giant robots fighting giant monsters. Who wouldn't want to see that movie? I guess people didn't really, catch on to this one. Cameron, what did you think of Pacific Rim?
I liked Pacific Rim a lot, actually. And of the summer films, it was the one that surprised me the most because the marketing did nothing for me. I was told to go see the movie from a friend because he said it will blow your fucking socks off. And I was like, well, we'll see. And it didn't, but it was a lot of fun. Like, and I'm not huge on Del Toro's stuff. I'm not big on Hellboy. I love Pan's Labyrinth. So I didn't know what to expect. And there are very abrasive characters in it. Charlie Day's character is really manic and really frantic. And it can get, and I love him, but it can get really grating very quickly. But as a whole, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. And I'm really excited to get it when it comes out on Blu-ray because it looks gorgeous. It really does look absolutely fascinating. So I feel like a lot of hate that has come from people watching it, they were expecting like the next great sci-fi franchise. And I don't think it ever tries to be that, though, is the thing, is that it's a film that knows it's all about beating the shit out of monsters with giant robots. And it looks at you in the face. I'm not giving you anything more than this, and it never tries. And that's why I liked it, because it's a movie that does exactly what it wants to do and knows that it's doing it right, and then lets you leave with a smile on your face. And that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun at Pacific Rim, but it's just like once again I was sort of let down.
Yep.
Not that it wasn't a good movie. It was just I was just doing something a little bit more substantial than what we got. And I don't know why I felt that way. I sort of didn't realize that it wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. And I shouldn't have tried to make it seem like it was supposed to be this serious movie trying to say something. But I mean, I just expected more from Guillermo del Toro, I think. And with its subject matter, it's a bit depressing. It's the world. Well, the remainder of the world against the apocalypse. It's these giant monsters tearing us a new asshole like every day, and we're losing. People are dying, cities are being destroyed, and we're supposed to be able to stop this, but we can't. And that's very depressing to watch because you want the heroes to win, and they're not winning.
Well,
so with it being depressing, it didn't help that the three biggest fight scenes took place at night, and at night underwater, and so it was really dark, and that just sort of didn't help with my mood, and it wasn't. I don't think it was a good choice on the director's part to have a lot of this. Well, the major scenes set at night like that. I mean, maybe once, but it got really old, really fast, and you can't really see anything, especially when they're underwater like that. But that's my gripe about Pacific Rim. It's a really fun movie, but if you're a person like me who overanalyzes things and gets emotional over little things, maybe you shouldn't watch it. Connor, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before I forgot, but I wrote it down. First off, I'm a huge kaiju fan. I was obsessed with Godzilla when I was little, and I'm pretty damn excited for the film coming out next year. So you would think I would love a film like this. It has everything I love. It's a film that doesn't take itself too seriously. Del Toro is the director. You have giant monsters fighting giant robots. It should be amazing, right?
Right.
I was pretty let down, actually, and it's weird because I really didn't have any expectations either, because I wasn't impressed with the marketing, but sometimes marketing for films isn't that great, but the actual final product itself is fantastic. I just felt myself not caring for the characters. I don't know if it's just because we didn't see a lot of them or because of the script. I get that this is a film that focuses more on the creatures than the human aspect. I get that, but I just still felt like I really just couldn't give a shit about any of the characters, and I really tried. I will say Charlie's character, that was the one I found the most enjoyable. Charlie Day, I mean, not Charlie Hunnam.
You guys
The
on a
fight
first name
scenes.
basis?
What?
You got a first name basis?
Yeah. The fight scenes, actually, Caleb, I remember you and I talked how we didn't like that the scenes were in night, and I still agree with that, but I watched it again on my computer, and they're not as jarring as they were when I first saw them. Just like what Cameron said about how he feels like you should watch Iron Man 3 again. I think if you did see Pacific Rim and you weren't impressed, maybe give it another shot. I mean, I saw it again and I still didn't think it was all that, but it's an enjoyable film. I'll give it that. It has pretty cool action scenes, and for that reason alone, I guess you should try and check it out. I don't think it's a horrible film at all, but I definitely do think it's Del Toro's weakest film he has made so far. I know a lot of people didn't like Hellboy 2, but I thought everything Del Toro has done as a director has been better than Pacific Rim, but that's just me.
Well, we're sort of winding down here. Our next film is a sequel slash reboot of the standalone Wolverine franchise. This time directed by James Mangold. Hugh Jackman returns in his role as Logan, the Wolverine, and he's in Japan, and he is he's contacted by a man whose life he saved back in the 1940s during World War II, and hijinks ensue. We've got a freaky woman with a lizard tongue and a giant samurai robot, and for some reason Wolverine loses the to regenerate, which causes some problems. What are your thoughts on this film, Connor?
I liked it. And it's funny how when you go into a film with absolutely no expectations, it's funny just, because I had huge expectations for Steel and, Iron Man 3, and it's just funny how when you go into a film with almost no expectations, it's just funny how, you can just enjoy a film. You don't have this set, meter system in your head on, well, is this going to look as good as it did in the trailers? Well, I know all this information. Is it going to be displayed in the film as well as I want it to be? I walked into the Wolverine with 0% expectations. I watched a few trailers, thought they were fine. I was basically dragged to see it because my brother really wanted to see it. But surprisingly, I really did enjoy it. I really liked how it was sort of an intimate take on Logan's character rather than just another action mutant film. There was actually surprisingly a lot of very well done moments with Logan, and I got to give it to Hugh. I think personally in this film he did the best portrayal of Logan that he's done in any X-Men film, just because he was given golden opportunities with the script to really shine as an actor and really show the audience what this side of Logan that we really haven't gotten to see on film before, just because of all the other characters in the X-Men universe and because of all the action set pieces. My really only complaint with the film is the third act. It's a letdown tonally. It just doesn't fit the first two acts. It feels like you're watching this intimate character piece with a few action set pieces in it, and then it just completely pulls a 180, and the third act feels like you're watching X-Men Origins, and that is not a compliment. I enjoyed it though. I definitely think if you like Hugh Jackman as an actor, you should check it out. If you like X-Men at all, you should check it out. Just go into the film with no expectations. I think you will be surprised.
Just lower your expectations and you'll have a good time. And I did. I didn't have many issues with the movie. I really enjoyed it. I think it was nice that they did set up X-Men Days of Future Past at the end of this one. Cameron, did you see the Wolverine? What did that?
I did see the Wolverine. Wolverine was a film I saw it with my girlfriend the night after we saw The Conjuring, which we both liked. But the Wolverine was a film that I recognize as a good film, but one that kind of bored me. There were sequences in that film that I really enjoyed. I really liked the bullet train fight scene a lot.
Yeah.
And the opening scene of the bomb, were they in Hiroshima?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. That sequence is gorgeous. I didn't like any of the villains. I thought they were all really flat and two-dimensional and fairly stupid. And I agree completely with Connor about the third act. Jackman's great. I mean, he always is as Wolverine. But for the most part, I think it's definitely worth a watch. Like, I wouldn't tell anybody not to go see the Wolverine.
That about does it for this episode of Cut 2 Podcast. Our next episode is our fall movies preview, and be sure to check that one out. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and see you next time. Bye.